Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first collaborative and online event for Love for Immigrants, virtual art healing speaker series and exhibit. So Love for Immigrants is a social space for immigrant support. It aims to connect immigrants to their communities as respected, loved, and heard individuals by sharing their narrative through art and storytelling. And today we have a wonderful guest speaker, Safi Lynch. She is a licensed social worker, also from Liberia, and she particularly works with people of color, adult and children immigrants struggling with cultural identity. I personally read her blog as a child of immigrants and found one of the articles very informative and resonated with where I learned a lot about trauma, complex trauma, generational trauma, and things that really I had observed, didn't know um, what it was about, but thought there was something to it. So she really explained that really well. So she also has online therapy options for people in California, Maryland, Florida, and New Jersey residents. So we will send a link. We'll have it online on the online exhibit, and you can check out her blogs. They're fabulous. She's also on Instagram. So Safi, feel free to introduce yourself a little bit further.
Sure. Hello, Maribel. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, and thank you for the kind words about my work and my blog. Those have been some hard labor to put those together. So it's great to hear that someone, has read it and appreciated it and was able to learn something. So I'm Safi Lynch Wilson, and like you said, I'm originally from Liberia, West Africa. And I came to the U.S. at 12. And my work right now, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and my work is primarily focused on immigrants, on cultural identity, and most of that has been shaped by my own journey as an immigrant coming to the U.S. and just as a child, and how that shaped me as an adult. And so that's my work focuses on just people of color and immigrants who, have some struggles with our identity, with acculturation, and just being here, especially now during these times that are challenging for most people, but especially for immigrants. So I'm also a mother of three, a 5-year-old, 2-year-old twins, and I'm a military spouse. So that is me. So I'm really happy to be joining you.
Thank you for coming fully to the table with all yourselves, all parts of you. We definitely we incorporate a lot of love for children too. So if anybody's on the call and they have children, hopefully our parent viewers also resonate with them how it is to manage work and be present with children. So let's go into our next question. You mentioned how your culture has shaped the work that you do. Can you discuss that a little bit further? How your culture in Liberia, also your background in the US, has shaped your notion of healing?
Sure. So I think for me, there is a lot of loss in the process of coming here, right? So a lot of loss, a lot of grief. And we don't really recognize it as immigrants, because we're coming from one home and we're going to a new place. And even when we're going for the right reasons, it's still a loss. And so I had a journey of just some difficulties that I wasn't really clear on how to identify. I didn't know what it was because, like I said, I was 12. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know necessarily how to go through this journey. And so in terms of healing, what I found helpful for me was discovering a small community where we immigrated. So we came to California. And so the first year I was sort of on my own because, we were like the only family at that time, the only Liberian family. And then the next year, another family moved, immigrated, and they were closer. And so the culture, literally the culture and the friendship, the support, and the shared experience was healing for me. And I think also one of the things that held us together was the fact that I was old enough to still have a piece of my culture from back home, right? So I was old enough to know the foods. I was old enough to know, um, the music. I was old enough, like I have memories. I had concrete memories. And so I could still celebrate them here with other people who had similar memories as we learned a new culture. So I think that the healing, to answer your question, I think the healing came from our traditional um, values and just some of the traditions that we kept, because we still attended functions. The community grew, of course, and so we attended functions together where we shared our, traditional meals, danced to our traditional music, and just we held on to the pieces of the culture that we could. And I think that that was part of my healing. Of course, back then you don't know it, but looking back on it as an adult, I recognize that those were sort of those were my healers. That's part of the reason why I was able, to make it through and to be successful, in the ways that I wanted to be successful today. Despite a lot of the challenges that came with, just immigrating.
Thank you for that and for
Mhm.
bringing up the importance of community in our
Mhm.
healing. So
Mhm.
much of some research that I did with educators, we realized that community building was really
Absolutely.
one of the best ways to really resolve some of the greatest ills in our society, especially here in the US. And so I appreciate you touching on that. And thinking about now those difficulties for immigrants, new immigrants now, children of immigrants during this stage, especially growing up here. What would you suggest for immigrants for how to deal with some difficult emotions and difficult situations that may be coming up?
Okay. So I think the very first thing that is most important, and this is where a lot of us as immigrants and immigrant parents struggle, I think the most important thing is to recognize that there is a need to address these issues because a lot of us come from other nations where we don't know much about mental health and mental wellness. And so a lot of us don't know what it is that we're seeing. We don't know what it is that even needs to be addressed, right? So I think that the first thing is to recognize that, hey, there is something going on here with how we feel, and that we may or may not be okay, and to recognize that that's okay. Because I know that for my own from my own culture, one of the struggles was that if you looked as if you were sad, or if you looked as if you were struggling, it was sort of viewed as you being ungrateful, right? So we're coming from this place where, because for me personally, there was a civil war, so we came here as refugees. And so, you're looking at a situation where you're literally escaping for your life. So why are you looking sad? Why are you moping? So it comes across as being ungrateful. And so I think that, to answer your question, the first step that needs to be taken is to recognize that there's an emotional component to immigration. And then I think seeking help is important. And so when I say seeking help, it doesn't necessarily need to be professional. Of course, I'm biased. I believe that it should be professional because, there's heavy stuff that we bring with us. But I think you can also seek help in your community. You can seek help within shared experiences. And just being able to acknowledge and to talk about things that make us feel sad and not feel isolated, that and think that you may be going through these things alone. So in terms of healing, I think having shared experiences, having conversations, seeking professional help, and art. One of the things that I found very therapeutic, growing up, was dancing. Dancing to our traditional music, and not just at functions, but even in my own home, being able to listen to it, being able to dance in the home, just a form of escape on one hand, and also a form of reconnection with what you've left behind. So for, I think just the arts, writing is therapeutic. What is music? Music is our thoughts, right? We write it. So writing is therapeutic, is healing. Um, Painting, drawing. Personally, I'm not a great painter. I'm not a great artist in that way, but I can appreciate it. So I think there are many ways that we can heal, but we just have to realize that we need to heal, that there's something going on that we need to address first before we can, access all these different ways to heal ourselves.
Thank you for that, for speaking. So also at a personal level, I think many people forget that our experts also are people and have experienced the struggles we might be dealing with, and that might make for a more empathetic ear even.
Mhm.
So going to
Absolutely.
our next question, which is, I know you work with different ages, people from different ages. So if you have seen at all how art has helped people from all ages, and what are the key impacts on children expressing themselves through art, also as
Sure.
adults expressing themselves
Sure.
through art?
Sure. So I'll start with adults, and I'll start with where we are right now as a nation, and the work that I have seen with clients. Because of where we are with the pandemic, with just civil, unrest, what I have seen that has been really helpful for some people, because I don't think people recognize that emotionally we just have not been well. We're just not ourselves, and we're trying to push through, but we're not ourselves pre-COVID. And so what I have seen is I have spoken to people who have been connecting virtually through the arts. So there are these virtual paint and sips that people have found very, very therapeutic, very therapeutic, where, they're on the Zoom calls and they're doing these virtual paint and sips where, it's relaxing, it's fun, and it's healing. And it helps them to connect. Again, as a community, you're connecting with your peers, you're connecting with your friends and family members that we may not necessarily be able to see because of COVID. But I've seen a lot of paint and sip. And then I also have been talking to people who are doing their own painting by themselves, at home. And I think that is wonderful. It's so therapeutic because it's a way of identifying your emotions, right, through your art. The colors that you use can be an indication of what you're feeling, and also it's just a way of transferring from the mind elsewhere. Because I think a lot of times we have a lot of things going on in our minds that we can't necessarily address. We don't know what it is. We're just overwhelmed. So it's a means of transferring your emotions from one place somewhere else. Is a release. It's a release. So I've seen that for adults and for children, But when I go back to my earlier years, when I first started social work, so for like the first 10 plus years, I did a lot of work with younger children. So people laugh when I said, when I had my own kids, then I stopped working with the little people because I got tired. I just didn't have the energy as much. But when I did do a lot of play therapy, what I found to be very helpful, because with little children, they may not have the language to express whatever it is that they're going through. And so what I found was that art was a good way for them to express themselves. It was a good way, doing play therapy, doing art therapy, having them just draw where there's no pressure, whereas for an adult, you can say, hey, what's going on? Why are you feeling stressed? You can't do that with a kid. But you can give them paint, you can give them crayons, you can give them, Play-Doh to create. You can give them different things and they can tell you a story with their art. And so I've seen it be very therapeutic. I've seen it give information to us as therapists and to the parents. Parents would bring their kids and say, "Hey, I don't really understand what's going on with my child. Can you help?" And children can tell a story through art. And so it can be used, in many forms. It can be used to explore. It can be used to heal. It can be used to relax. It has a lot of purposes for us as adults and as children. And the last piece that I want to say, as adults, one of the things that I've been recommending highly to a lot of people, especially people who are dealing with anxiety right now because of COVID, adult coloring books. I have told people, hey, get on Amazon, get these adult coloring books and go to town with them at home. They are so relaxing, they're so soothing, and they can be a distraction as well. And people have found them to be very, very helpful as a stress relief right now during, these times.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. There's so much there to unpack, and for parent listeners, great advice there. And for adults, right? Many of us adults
Mm-hmm.
think that the playtime is over. Well, guess what? It's not, and it doesn't have to be. And it can be a very productive way to express ourselves. We all have innate creativity. So I appreciate helping us remember that. Let's go to one of our last questions, which is, what are the top 3 mindset shifts that can help people have more well-being in their lives?
Okay, so I think the very first thing that we need to recognize right now is that things are not normal, so it's okay to not feel normal. So I think that's the first shift that we have to make mentally, that it's okay to not be okay. I think that I've seen a lot of people struggle with that, where they see it as a personal failure, that they're not being strong. So the first shift is recognizing that, our world is not okay right now. And so if you're not okay, that's fine. We will be okay. But in this moment, things are not what we know it to be. Things are not comfortable. Things don't feel great. And so if you don't feel great, that's okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, people need to make a shift in terms of what they define as productive. I have seen a lot of people who are struggling to maintain the same level of productivity that they had pre-COVID. And that's so not fair to yourself. It's not fair, because if you think about it, we have more stressors right now, right? We have more stressors and we have less access to our stress relievers. And so more stress, less stress relief, but you're expecting yourself to produce at the same level. It's not realistic and it's not fair to yourself. So we need to be able to redefine what productivity looks like right now, and be okay with it not being what it looks like pre-COVID. Now, I understand that for some people that may be challenging, because some people have these jobs that are not being sensitive, where the standards have not changed and they're being held to the same standards with the same expectations. And, no one wants to lose their job in the middle of a pandemic. So I understand for some people that may not be as realistic for work. But I think that if that's the case for you, you can change what productivity looks like in your home life right now. So, if your house is a little messy right now because you have to work just as hard or even harder with your job, be okay with that. Recognize that we're in a certain environment where we are under, duress, and things may not look the same. And then the third piece, which I think is so important, we need to prioritize self-care. We cannot take care of anything if we're not okay. And so we need to be able to prioritize self-care. And that looks like this: just as much as you know that you've got this Zoom meeting on Monday at 3 o'clock, you need to schedule time for yourself, for something that relaxes you. And it doesn't have to be anything major. It can be scheduling time to sit down, listen to music, to music, scheduling time to read a book, scheduling time to take a bath, or scheduling time to do absolutely nothing. Hey, doing nothing is productive as well. It's productive. Resting, that's also productive. And so just making sure that we recognize that self-care is not just necessary, but right now, self-care is mandatory. That we prioritize, our health, our mental health, our physical health, just take care of ourselves. So those are the three things that I think are just really important, as we go through this phase, in the nation.
Self-care is the new productivity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't be productive if you don't take care of yourself.
Thank you for that. And we are wrapping up. So if you have any last closing thoughts, please feel free to share them with us, Safi.
Sure. Again, I think that my hope is that in the midst of everything that we're going through, my hope is that we can find things that are healing to us, things that make us feel okay, things that relax us, things that make us laugh, things that bring us peace. If we can find those things and make sure that we connect with at least one of those things, every day, I think that, we'll be okay, and we'll be able to get through these difficult times. But again, I think that we need to just make sure that we connect with things that bring us peace. Personally for me, I like dancing. And so I've been on these DJ lives, live events. I've been on the quarantine radio, and that's my self-care. Making sure that I'm listening to something, that feels good, that I can dance and move my body and just be free. That's healing for me. So I hope that, anyone that's listening out there, I hope that you can identify at least one thing that relaxes you and brings you peace, and that you can commit to doing at least one of those things for yourself every day. So.
Absolutely. And by the way, I love dancing too, so maybe we can share.
I would love that. That's my thing right now. That's what brings me peace.
Great, great. So for all of our audience, our immigrants, our allies, our people who are somewhere in between, like me, children of immigrants, please stay tuned and watch the other mental health experts and healers, as well as our artists. Please check out Safi's website and Instagram as well, and also seek the help you need, whether it's in your community or whether it's a professional. And thank you so much for listening, and have a healing journey in Safi. Thank you so much for all your wisdom and knowledge today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun to be here, and I'm happy to share whatever knowledge or information that people may find helpful. This is a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Bye.
Bye.